it became easier and easier to identify which pieces of my personality were really me and which pieces were the mechanisms and defense tools that I used in order to sustain relationship with people that really weren't my people.
Welcome to More Than a Milspouse, the podcast for military spouses who want to live with more meaning and less overwhelm. I'm your host, Christine, seasoned military spouse, mom of 3, life coach, and your guide to intentionally designing a life you're excited about as a military spouse. I'm here to help you get the clarity you need so you can get unstuck and unlock your purpose and potential. Because you, my friend, are more than a milspouse. You have something valuable to offer. And when you pursue the things that light your heart on fire, you trade frustration for fulfillment and isolation for a life of impact. It's time to discover who you are meant to be, because together we can change the world. Welcome back to the Summer Milspouse Transformation Series. This series is all about helping you change your life by looking at small shifts that can lead to some really big results. Here at More Than a Milspouse, I am all about helping you create a life with more meaning and less overwhelm. One that truly lights you up, fills you with happiness and joy, and doesn't require a change in your external circumstances. And over the last several weeks, we've talked about how to care for ourselves. We've talked about our home environment. We've talked about our relationship with our family. And today we are going to be specifically looking at our friendships. It's been said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, for some of us, that's our extended family. And for some of us, we have an amazing network of friends around the world that we stay connected with. We have friends who have truly become family. But for some of us, we might even struggle to name 5 people outside of our immediate family that know us very well at all. Loneliness and isolation are 2 things that many military spouses struggle with. And so today's episode is about building a community and friendships as a military spouse, especially if we move a lot. And today's guest is someone who has been very intentional about investing in people and building those relationships. And so when I thought about who do I bring on to talk about this topic, she was one of the first people that came to mind, because the longer that you are a military spouse, the smaller the world sometimes seems to get, and everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And her name kept coming up over and over again in different conversations I was having with different people. Megan B. Brown. Megan is the founder and executive director of Milspouse Co., which is a 501c3 organization focused on equipping military-connected women. She is passionate about equipping the military community to connect with God and each other, build biblical community, and share in the Great Commission. She is the author of Summoned, which is an 8-week study on the book of Esther, and the managing editor of Brave Women, Strong Faith, a collection of stories written by military women and wives. And did I mention she is also the mom of 4 kiddos? She says that nothing makes her happier than a full house with a kitchen full of friends. Megan, welcome to the show. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Hey, family. I am so glad to be here. My name is Megan. I am a seasoned military spouse. That really just means I'm older. And I have 4 children that range from high school all the way down to grade school. We have been an active duty military family for edging up on the end of 19 years, close to the retirement line. And really for the last decade, I've served as a military missionary, connecting the military community in and through the local church, and also writing here and there. And I'm a Lego fanatic who also enjoys Chick-fil-A. That's the unofficial bio.
I love it. I love Chick-fil-A. I am excited about moving closer to Chick-fil-A. One of the things that I am always curious about when I invite guests onto the show is for them to share their introduction to military life. What was that like for you coming into the military community?
So I grew up in and around the military. My dad was active duty military, and so I had a context for what this could be like. I never saw myself getting married, having children. I was a little bit wild in my youth. I was an excitable creature, and so it was the early 2000s. I graduated high school. I was in the workforce, and I met this very nice young man who was wearing a white Oxford tucked into his little jeans. And I had purple hair and tattoos well before it was cool. And, they say opposites attract, and that would be true. He was a very nice young man from the Midwest, and I grew up in the 318. And so he begged me to go out on a date, and he was persistent about it, really. But we met in November. We started dating in December, and 4 months later, he made an honest woman out of me. And I always say that it was the early 2000s BDUs, man. Those black T-shirts, it got me. The sun's out, guns out season. It was over. So we didn't know each other very long before we got married, and I was capital W wild. I was living my best life with all the worst habits, and he was a very clean cut young boy who grew up in the church. And so didn't really know what I was getting into. About 6 months into our marriage, he woke me up on a Sunday morning after I had been out on a Saturday night living it up. And he's like, "Hey, we're going to go to church this morning." And I remember like pulling the comforter like up over my head. And I'm like, "Correction, you're going to church. I'm going back to sleep. You can carry me to Chili's when you're done churching, but I'm not churching." And he's like, "No, I'd really feel bad. I'd really like you to try it. I mean, it can't be that bad. It's not going to be that bad." And so he didn't tell me the rules about the dress code or anything like that. So I just threw on the clothes I wore the night before and dragged myself to this very nice church. The very short story is that becoming a military spouse and a believer at the same time was an interesting experience because the military and the church had similar but incongruent messaging almost. The church was telling me things like, be the perfect woman, wife, mom, friends, all that thing. Some nice lady printed out this long list from Proverbs that, I read it and I was like, whoa, hey babe, if this is the expectation, let me just let you down easy. Like bringing the food from afar. Does Domino's count? Because that's all you're getting. I don't know how to do any of that. And then simultaneously, the military was saying things like, it's going to be hard, but don't tell us about it. We know. Like, sit down and color and just here's a better checklist and an attitude adjustment. Just buckle up. We're going live. We write at dawn. And so I got really good at checklisting, and I got really good at a positive attitude and a better checklist with a better method. And I think somewhere around the 7 to 10 year mark, we figured out that that is not a sustainable way of life.
Nope.
And nope, not good, fam. So if you're checklisting, spoiler alert, your energy is going to run out one day soon. So my introduction into the military was nothing like I could have imagined it to be. 5 duty stations, over 10 houses, and almost 20 years later. And I think the rose-colored glasses we looked at this experience with from the beginning is definitely a little clearer in hindsight.
What is something that you wish you would have known coming into this lifestyle?
Oh, yeah. I feel like I've had this conversation a lot in the last 6 months. So, one of the things that we always heard from our community, seasoned spouses, if you will, is that the journey to retirement and the other side of it is wonderful, that you're going to love it. Every moment of it, it's just going to be great. Like all the things shift and things are different. And I have found that to be a little bit of a myth, family. At transition, there's this narrative when I became a military spouse that when you hit retirement, the focus can shift and it can be all about what you want to do because you've given up 20 years of your life and now it can be your turn. And I hate to say that myth has been busted, myth busted. That is not how it works. The way that we have given up all things, all of our autonomy on our time, our schedule, our cash, our calendar, the car keys, there's no equal and opposite reciprocation for that. There's no way to say to your spouse at the end of 20 years, okay, here's the long list of suffering that I'm cashing in my brownie points now, and this is what I want. That isn't a real thing. So I wish that that's probably the number one thing that I probably say. I wish I would have known. Tongue in cheek, and I wish you could see me, guys, because I'm smirking. Um, I was not prepared for the amount of resentment at the end of the things that we paid in that we really didn't count. So I think I wish someone would have told me at the beginning of our military journey to sustain ourselves through rest, and not the mommy wine culture rest of take a bubble bath and get a glass of rosé, because I mean that ain't gonna do anything. And not the same self-care lecture. What I wish someone would have said to us is we have to be very intentional with each other and very intentional about what we ask for, and we can't sacrifice all things for the sake of the job. uh, that'll create bedrocks of rage and resentment at the end. Ask me how I know.
It's so good because, I mean, this is why this podcast exists, because there are so many words of advice, especially I received as a new spouse coming in saying, like, it's all about making sure that your spouse's career matters and you can wait, right? And what I quickly realized is that we think that the grass is greener on the other side. And if we just, make it to when our spouse gets out, then life will be good. But it's really about what we can do now to take care of ourselves and learn how to have a fulfilling life wherever we are. You can have a life that brings you joy, that brings you excitement. You don't have to wait until your spouse leaves the service. And it's really about learning how to take care of yourself, invest in those relationships, and have that sense of purpose. So I really feel like you are one that has done a great job of building relationships and investing in a community, because we were never meant to do life alone. Is that something that came easily for you, or is that something that you had to learn over time?
It was definitely something I had to learn over time. The saying inside of our house is that we had to learn how to evaluate our season and our support systems when making any decision, like what season are we in? How old are our kids? What do they need from us? How much bandwidth do I have? How much capability do I have for support? Is my spouse here? Is he not here? Who's riding to the right and to the left? Like, do I have the support to lock and load, launch new projects, to do all the things that we want to do without like great burnout costs? I would say that I had to learn how to do it. And if I'm really honest, right, like, so I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was like 36, like those years ago. We should have known this about me, family. Every time I teach or speak, I have a 30-second disclaimer in front of anything I teach. Okay, guys, I'm going to have 17 conversations at once, and I'm only going to be having one with you, and you don't know which one it is. And so if you're a note taker, may the force be with you, because I speak at 2.95 speed.
I love
and
it.
I move around, and those ninja hands, they are going. And so, for me, as someone who was undiagnosed for much of my time as a military spouse, the systems, the checklists, the masking, it was very difficult to make friends for the first 10 years I was a military spouse, because literally, like, someone would say, "Oh man, I really like you." And in my head, I'd be thinking, "I'm so glad I've made this personality just for you. It's actually you. Like, it's you. It's just a mirror of you." Because I don't know how to fit into spaces. It's weird. So, in the first 10 years, it was probably more difficult than I could even describe, because I couldn't figure out how to relate to the women around me. And then every once in a while, I got really lucky. And when I say that life started getting really beautiful, it was right at about the 9-10 year mark, where I met two military spouses that were unapologetically unmasked. And they were authentically themselves. And man, were we all like dumpster fires rolling down a hill? Absolutely, yes. But there was so much freedom in that. It was ridiculous. And so the three of us spent a lot of time together. And it became easier and easier to identify which pieces of my personality were really me and which pieces were the mechanisms and defense tools that I used in order to sustain relationship with people that really weren't my people.
What did you find that was different from the relationships you were building that were based on a personality or a mask and the relationships you developed when you were truly being authentically yourself?
Oh man, the running joke within some of our friendships is that there's nothing worse than a neurodivergent woman who's hard masking. And it's only because like they hold themselves to such unrealistic expectations that they sort of do that for the people around them too. And when you think about the friendships that you look back on, and I'm not making generalizations about all neurodivergent women, like so I'll be very careful not to make blanket statements. But we all have that friend who shall not be named. That when someone says that person's name, we like, ooh, we have like a full response. We're like, oh no, no, not her. She who shall not be named cannot come back. No, she was crazy and made me cry. You know, usually I found that women who were high masking had really unrealistic expectations of themselves and the ones around them. They were usually very high maintenance. They didn't know how to communicate what they needed or why. And I'll take a chronic oversharer over someone I have to play the did they really mean what they said when they said that? I don't know if that's real. Was that real? I don't know. Um, you know, my weird neighbor who has been my best friend for, well over a decade now. You never had to wonder what she was thinking because it always just fell out onto the floor. And I love that about her. I still do. And we love the clarifying question, like, "Hey, I didn't like the way that felt. What do you mean?" It wasn't offensive. It wasn't weird. We were just very open and communicating with each other. And so I would just say, like, to answer your question, that was a really long answer to a short question. What was the difference? One of those relationships just brought me a lot of stress and confusion and chaos. The other was actual connection, and we built community out of it. And the relationship with women that was built on something honest and something shared was so much richer and lasted longer. And when I say we had grace and space for one another, we had, there'd be weeks where we'd disappear from the face of the earth and we didn't get that weird text message of, "Are you mad at me?" No, we're just trying to survive. So I would say so many times as a military spouse, we try to have it all together. We are scrubbing our baseboards and pushing pine sol around our counters before people come over. And I have learned over the years that my couch laundry actually adds a pop of color to my decor. And it's texture, guys. But I mean, I found that the people that I really do want to be around don't expect me to jump through flaming hoops just to be in their presence. And that's wonderful. Find those people.
Yeah, so I think that's the real question is what we want is relationships where we can be authentically ourselves and still feel like we are accepted and we're loved. But we hear all these stories of spouses who have found like this amazing community that they have this best friend or tribe that they are doing everything with. And then so many military spouses struggle with loneliness and not feeling that sense of connection. And so we have this idea that we're all supposed to have these close relationships. And then so many of us struggle in this area. So the question, what has that looked like for you to be able to find that? And once you realize what that felt like, how did you intentionally pursue that in relationships?
So the rule of thumb is this: authentic community is never found, it's always built. It's not just found. It's built with intentional choices, decisions, and I mean it takes time, talent, and your wallet. It's something that in our family we know that it is the difference between life and death. And so we intentionally start building community as quickly as we can, because this is the other hard thing. Like our kids' community depends on our ability to build community. And reason number 932 for my mom guilt, Alex Trebek. Like it's that if we don't know how to build community, everyone in our direct family is hit by that. And the honest truth is that you can't always do it. We came from Keesler Air Force Base, where we were juggernauts in community building. We planted churches, and I was the director of community groups at our church. And I literally had a job building community. And then we moved, and I was there for 2 years. And I don't think I breathed without being like, I don't think I can do it. We couldn't do it. And my husband was gone back to back with a deployment, and then a 365 in a company to Korea. The kids were grade schoolers, and then there was a COVID pandemic. And I mean, like, man, it was wild. So one, you can do it at one station, get to another place, and you won't be able to. We always say when we sit down to evaluate where we're going, or if we even have any control, which 90% of the time we don't, you never get the command, the career, the community, the church, the connections you want, or the house you want. You're lucky if you get one of those. Otherwise, everything is a challenge. And it's about being willing to first identify what you want in a community, because not every community is the same, and not every community is built on the same things. And a perfect example is this, like, and I love you, military spouses. I love us all. I think sometimes we're triple dipped in the crazy, and we say weird things and do weird things. Sometimes military friendships are built on mutual preferences or dislikes. Oh, you don't like her? I don't like her. We're friends. That's weird. But it happens, right? Like, but what do you base your connectivity upon? Is it that you share a hobby? Is it that you share careers? Is it that you share goals? Is it that you have a defined meaning of community? I mean, we do. Our definition is, Acts 2:42 is burned into my brain, but we don't call it community, we call it fellowship, right? Like, there's a fellowship where you're together. There's a unified understanding of who the other is and what we do and how we treat one another. We have a shared set of beliefs. We have core values that are similar. We love our families. We love our friends. Acts 2:42 says that they were selling their stuff to make sure no one in their immediate community had any need. We're hawking our stuff on eBay so we can keep each other's lights on. We're all in. So, and that isn't just a given thing. Like, we have to do a lot of discovery work to see if we have aligned values and we actually mean what we say. So you have to know who you want in your community, what kind of people you want. Do you want people that love the same things you love the same hobbies you love the same people you love? I mean, there's all different kinds of community. We have all different kinds in our family. And then the second important thing to do is to define what success in community looks like. Is it that you can swap childcare? Is it that you can encourage one another? Is it that, there's something that you guys can do together because you live next door? Defining what you can do based on, the connections you're building,
Yeah, and I think what you said is important because we think, okay, this worked this way at this last duty station. And then we go into this new place, we're expecting to find the same thing. And it doesn't look the same. And the opportunities are not the same. And so really taking that time to say, what is it that is important to me? What kind of community do I want in my life? And what does that look like? So then the real question for us is how we go about pursuing that intentionally, because we all get busy, when your spouse is deployed, when they're gone on a 365, when your kids are little and you can barely get out of the house, or they're involved in all the activities and it feels like you're constantly the chauffeur mom. It's really hard, let's be honest, to prioritize building that community. So what has that looked like for you?
I think it's understanding, and I'm going to use a $5 word here, like where in relational proximity someone is to me. Relational proximity is really just being able to realize what level of connectivity have we had. How many of you, and I'm raising my hand as a recovering people pleaser and control freak, like, everyone please like me, please. My teenager calls it that pick me energy. Like, I totally had that pick me energy when I was younger. A young military spouse. I wanted everybody to like me. And here's the thing. You've got to Really figure out where people are in relationship to you. How well do you know each other? If you only know someone for 5 seconds, you shouldn't be like bringing them their favorite coffee and like studying them and showing up for them in ways that they are not even interested in showing up for you. There was this one woman, and I bought this woman a white chocolate mocha for a year every Friday because our kids went to the same co-op. And I did it for a year before I figured out she didn't like me at all. And then I was like, should I be petty? Should I invoice her? Should I invoice her for this coffee? Like, that's a year's worth of coffee. That's a lot of Starbucks. I'm unhappy with my financial decisions. If they're just polite to you in passing conversation, match the energy. If they are asking you what you need, like, that's kind of the indicator for me. In most healthy friendships, caveat, if someone is like, what can I do for you? Oh my God, what can I do? And you don't know that person, be like, ooh, who are you? But if you've been around someone enough to have coffee a couple of times, you have kids involved in the same thing, you're occupying the same spaces, your coworkers, co-laborers, whatever. And they're like, man, I've noticed that you've been challenged with this or that, or like, this sounds really tough. Like, I've listened to you speak and I've heard you say this and this. Like, I'd love to show up in that. That is when things start getting good, girls. Like I love that. That's when it gets good. And I think it's important that we understand not to overdo because we're trying to make it grow quickly. Like, I always say we have to learn the difference between urgency and haste. Like, I definitely want the urgency of friendships, but hasty friendships made, if you don't have all the facts, guys, you find out in fun ways.
Well, and it's hard especially for those of us who move every couple of years. It's like, okay, I need my friends now, or, then I'm going to spend the next 2 years feeling lonely. And so, it's that balance of, okay, like, I want to get to know you before I invest in you, but also, like, if we don't become friends now, then we only have so much time together.
So I have a filter. I call it the 30-minute recon coffee, right? Like, I will invite them over for a recon coffee and I will ask 3 very fundamental, very specific questions. And the answers to these questions will 9 times out of 10, I'm at 100 for 100. Like, this has never done me wrong, but it's not, I don't want to say it's foolproof. The first thing I ask is, tell me about your family. That's an open-ended question and it's on purpose. If you're familiar with the DISC assessment, right, you have dominant, influencing, steadfast, conscientious. Like, it's just a codified thing. Maybe it's my brain's ability, like pattern recognition. But dominant people will tell you about their roles and responsibilities. Influencing people will tell you about their hobbies. Steadfast people will tell you about their relationship to their family members. Well, we've been married X amount of years and my kids, this is what I do for this kid and that kid and this kid. And they're very much centered on their relationships. And a C person, it has never failed, will stop dead and look me into my soul and say, tell me what you mean by that question. What are you asking me? Those are detail people. I know their operating framework. I can tell if they're introverted or extroverted. I can assess what matters to them. The second question I ask them is, tell me what you like to do with your downtime. Like, what do you do? A dominant person would be like, what downtime? What are you talking about? Like, I have 3 jobs and I'm the PTO, PTA, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I have things I'm doing. An I person would be like, dude, we're Lego people. We love all of it. Yeah. We're always doing stuff. Steadfast people will be like, oh my gosh, I just love my quality time with my family. Movie nights. See, people will be like, exactly what downtime do you mean? Like, when I'm not working, when I'm not this, when I'm not that. You'll figure out what they're like and who you want to be around based on those 2 questions alone. And then my third question is, what does friendship look like for you? And I ask that question because friendship with me looks very unique. If you text me, it's 30 seconds or 30 business days and nothing in between. I sometimes have the inability to complete a thought. I'll get 2/3 of the way through and then I will factory reset and we will have no idea what we were talking about. And then there's the, do you want to see my rock phase, when you open up a conversation about a special interest of mine. And then 6 hours have gone by and I've lost all ability to gauge your disinterest. So I usually say, like, we have to have an understanding of what it looks like to be friends with one another and decide if that's something we want to pursue, if that makes sense.
No, that's really good, and really something that's practical and tangible, that I feel like all of us can take with us and implement into our lives. We are a little bit short on time today, but I would just love for you to, number one, if there is anything on your heart, a word of encouragement that you have for a military spouse who is in this season of feeling a little bit lonely and disconnected, what you would want to say to her. And then just share a little bit about what you do and how our listeners can connect with you.
Sure. A word of encouragement is this. Take this as your permission to be absolutely 100% yourself. Because I think sometimes we want to present the world with a version of ourselves that we think is acceptable. And I've learned that perfectionism and all of the pretending, it doesn't actually keep you from the pain that you're trying to avoid by doing it. It really just keeps you from being seen and understood. So if you're wondering why things are frustrating and you're not connecting well, ask yourself if you're really showing up as you or if you're showing up as a version that you think people will accept.
That's good.
That'd be my encouragement is to be pretty unapologetic about who you are and what you're about. Like that's been the greatest joy for me in the last 10 years. And as far as what I do, Milspouse Co. is a nonprofit that recruits, raises up, and releases military spouses as paid and prepared vocational ministry leaders or missionaries. We run a program with our partner seminary, Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary in Wake Forest, where we provide military spouses with a 1-year certification in biblical studies and theology so that they feel prepared to do the work of ministry. And then we train them for a year in practical ministry and fundraising so that they are able to raise support for salary and an operating budget so that every time you move, you have a portable career that you have access to get paid to community build. We're young. We're only 2 years old. And we launched our first cohort in 2022, and they are finishing their second year now. So we are about to release the first batch of missionaries after 2 years. Again, the difference between urgency and haste. Like, we want to go slow because we want to do it right. But really, the best way to connect with me is on social, Milspouse Co, at Milspouse Co, or at Meg Brown Writes. I've got a Bible study and my latest book, Know What You Signed Up For, How to Follow Jesus, Love People, and Live on Mission as a Military Spouse had been released last year. So that's me, guys. I look forward to hanging out. Y'all are fun.
Awesome. Megan, thank you so much for taking time out to come on and share your knowledge and experience with us. I just love how vocal you are about what it really means to be a military spouse and how we do this life well. You have done so much to invest in this community, and I'm just grateful for what you've done for military spouses. Guys, for some of us, making friends comes easily, and for others of us, it can be a lot harder. And when you add in moving and having friends move and deployments and all of the other obstacles that stand in the way, life can feel isolating. And if you struggle in this area, you're not alone. In one statistic, I saw that in 1990, the percentage of adults that had 10 or more close friends was 33%. In 2021, that percentage had fallen to just 13%. So this is something that doesn't just affect military spouses. But the truth is, you don't necessarily need 10 or more close friends. You just need to not feel alone. Building relationships, cultivating authentic friendships as a military spouse can be hard. And it's dependent on where you live and your season of life, but it's not impossible. And regardless of whether it comes naturally to you, it is possible. So let me ask you, what are you doing to invest in those around you? And what might be possible if you took the time to identify and invest in a couple of people in your life? They might not reciprocate, but then again, they might. As always, the More Than a Milspouse community exists to help support, encourage, and cheer you on as we pursue lives of more meaning and less overwhelm. I would love for you to come in the group and share what military spouse friendships look like in your life. Where have they been a blessing and where have you struggled? The more that I know what you are going through and what you are facing and trying to navigate, the more that I can create content and invite guests on to share information that will help us all. Because if you are walking through something right now, chances are you are not alone. Someone else is facing a very similar situation. And the more that we can share information, the more that we are all able to thrive rather than just survive. So come join our free community. Click the link in the show notes or just click on the community tab on the website. If building friendships is something that you struggle with, then I have a Milspouse friendship guide. This focuses on how to get over that awkward phase of meeting someone and specifically digs into how we have great conversations that help us get to know others better. It won't solve all of your friendship problems, but it will cut down on the amount of frustration you feel and make you more confident about going to an event where you may not know anyone. We dug into this in episode 167. I will link that in the show notes. But if you want to download your free Milspouse friendship guide, you can get that by going to milspousemastermind.com/connection or just click the link in the show notes. All right, next week, we are moving into the third pillar of a fulfilling life as a military spouse. We are talking about our contribution. And specifically, next week, we will be talking about finances. And when it comes to finances, it's really about being a good steward of the resources that we have. So next week, we are going to focus specifically on how to budget and save as a military family. I know that so many families struggle just to make ends meet, and I wanted this to be super practical for you to be able to think about what you can do today and how to set yourself and your finances up well in the long run. So that's what we're going to be focusing on next week. Until then, may you live filled, fueled, and full of joy. Hey, amazing Milspouse, before you go, I want you to know that I love hearing from you. The More Than a Milspouse community exists to help you thrive as a military spouse. Figure out what lights your heart on fire and empower you to live with purpose and impact. You can have an incredible impact simply by heading over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. But your impact doesn't stop there. You can empower those around you simply by sharing an episode with a friend or neighbor, someone who needs a little encouragement in this military life. And if this episode was meaningful to you, spread the love by taking a screenshot of this episode and tagging me on Instagram so we can continue to reach more people, change more lives, and shift the way that military spouses look at life. Because we are better together. Together, we can change the world. Let's do it.